Well, y'all, well, I guess we can go ahead and introduce ourselves. I know everybody, but I'm Alan, I'm on Ward 4, Position 2.
And I'm Rhonda Adams, Ward 4, Position 1.
Paula Johnson, live on Lawrence Circle.
Debbie Galana, live on Lawrence Circle.
Jim Van Horn, live over in Meadow Lake.
Right. Well, we didn't really have an agenda for the evening because normally we don't meet months where the last Monday falls on a holiday. But it was on the public calendar, so we just decided to go ahead and come and see if anybody else did too. And so we're here, and I think we can just talk about whatever you all want to talk about.
Did you have something special on your mind tonight?
Yes, I did. We had talked last month about the ditch along the Covenant Church property line, and my property line is, it's kind of a, well, it's an open ditch, water drainage, storm drainage, and it's not well maintained, and it's stagnant water. And I didn't know, I was talking to Alan last month, it's west of our property line. I don't know if it belongs to the city or to the church. But
I did send an email out on that, and I didn't hear back. I'm glad you reminded me. I'll follow up on it again.
okay. Yeah, because I was up to our privacy fence in the property line. For some reason, the guys that built the place, there's about a 2-foot area outside our fence that's actually on our property, so I was out cutting the grass in it the other day. It's nuts.
And we have a water and sewer meeting coming up, so I can talk about it then too, and find out all the details on that.
Those are often difficult problems to remedy.
Yes, they are.
I think it's one of the time I've been on the council, it's been one of the most disappointing things, because usually our city staff is very quick to acknowledge that we have a problem and talk about it, but then the engineering work of that, or whose problem it is, or what they have to do to fix it, or it's just a bigger deal than I realized.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because you get down to the corner where it runs behind the Covenant Church and over to, I think it's 46th Street. That's concreted, but it's still open water. And but from the backside up to Weddington, it's just dirt and weeds. And the closer you get to Weddington, it's trash.
Yeah.
I'll follow up on that again. I walked that entire area with, walked and drove part of that entire area with another constituent about a month and a half ago, because it seems like the drainage is getting worse and worse and worse on that part of the end of town. There's more development happening.
Yeah.
That entire creek that flows all the way from Owl Creek School all the way down, almost out to where where's that barbecue place? Penguinets.
Yeah.
There's just been a lot of overflow from that, and some of the issues I did hear back on, and the city doesn't have right-of-way in a lot of those places because it was annexed, and that kind of put it in a special situation where the city didn't own part of it.
Probably what might have aggravated that was the improvements in Weddington, because you got a lot more street service there, and
The water has nowhere to go.
you know, the other day it was raining so hard, I was sitting out, watching out back, and I mean, you can see cars in Weddington just spraying water everywhere, so.
Concrete.
So there's,
Concrete and roofs.
Yeah.
More roofs
Yeah.
that.
Well, the water has to stand somewhere,
Collects
because
a lot
that
of water.
garbage can't suck it up fast enough, can it?
And a lot of that dirt out there is clay, and so
Yeah.
it doesn't absorb.
Yeah, we couldn't walk across our backyard the other day for a day, it's just squishy. And evidently that whole area, I talked to neighbors out there, we just moved in there in December, so it's new to us. We were up north of Wheeler, which is, there's no dirt out there, it's all rock. This is really nice, because when we dig in it, it's like this much dirt and it's clay underneath.
We can get them, Sarah Reed, maybe can go out and look at it, and the engineering department can see what they can do about it, if anything.
If anything, that's the hard part.
Because I feel bad, there's some other people out in Salem Village or Salem Heights, and, the developer, I don't know if it was just, an accident. The accidents happen, and just the way it was developed, but there's just not enough, there's some flood area. Anyway, you can't, those people are struggling out there because there's too much water.
I used to live in one of those houses, and my side yard would just fill up with water, and it would have water in it for days, weeks sometimes. And what do you do? And then have to put in French drains. And that only adds to the problem a little bit farther down.
Yeah, then most people get it.
Well, and they're building more up there in Salem
Right,
too, so that's gonna make some more runoff.
Yeah. Come join us. We want you at the table.
Well, I'm close enough.
Okay. So, we're just talking a little bit about what brings us to the meeting tonight, what kind of neighborhood issues and concerns people have, and we've got one west of 49 here. Thank you for talking about that, and Alan, I've pledged to look into it and see what we can do. And
Any other thoughts or topics?
Gee. Yeah, Debbie and I here probably about the same thing. We're just neighbors. If the proposed development is going to happen or not. And I guess we just wanted to do our say before anything else happens. There are some times I actually walk up Cleveland or jog up Cleveland, you know, for exercise and stuff. And every once in a while I'll see the traffic police stop speeders. And I mean, they just, you know, it's so easy. It happens all the time. Well, most of the time I walk up, there's nobody there. I mean, there's nobody all the time, which is unfortunate because it's flying on it all the time. And either that or it's saying Avenue, they do go a little fast, okay. So I'm thinking, okay, if the planning commission plans, do they plan to hire more police? I mean, what are they going to do? If you have that potential traffic increase, lining up Cleveland and coming, because that's where they're going to go. They're not going to take one. Anyway, so that's where they're going to go. So what are they going to do? I mean, you can plan the development, but you got to plan for the rest of the infrastructure. And I mean, we don't have enough police now.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because this last week, it was Thursday, and I walked out of my house in the morning, because I live right on the corner of Archer and Sang, right across from the proposed street that they're talking, Lincolnwood, that they're talking about putting in, would come out literally right across from my driveway. And there were huge stakes in my yard, about 30 feet down Archer, not on Sang, but on Archer in my front yard. And I thought, well, wonder what those are there for. Maybe they're going to be continuing the work on Sang, you know, for the water and sewer work. So I emailed our vigilant city staff, you know, very diligent in their work, and they said they'd look into it, and they did, and it turns out it was a part of that. It was for the Marinoni plan development. They were doing a survey for what that potential street would have impact on utilities and different things like that. So it's just interesting that you brought that up, because I think there are going to be a lot of implications. Police is just one implication. People walking, just, you know, just normally like you do, exercising on Cleveland or saying whatever it may be with the traffic. And that's what I've encouraged people when they email, is just to, you know, talk about the safety concerns. And
it's going to be a real concern.
Because I've asked for patrols, extra patrols in that area a lot. That's all I can say.
I mean, they go past the Lord Circle.
Yeah.
What are they going to do going up Cleveland and stuff?
Yeah. And it seems like we have a lot of issues in that area, because just this morning, we know that one of our neighbors' cars was stolen about a month ago. And then this morning, 3 or 4 other cars were broken into right there within a courthouse radius, right there by where they're talking about putting that street in.
What, near Lincoln?
On Archer.
On Archer, okay.
So it's interesting you brought up police, because we seem to already have an issue. I know my house is, I live right there. My house has been, people have tried to break into it 4 times now.
Okay.
One person, he did, but
Is that on Waterman? I mean, is that Archer, is Waterman Wood?
Archer and Sang,
Yeah.
Yeah, police, that's definitely a topic of conversation to be had. But, of course, that's not even made it through the planning commission.
No, but when they plan, do they think of things like that? I mean,
They don't take into consideration the police department. The fire department
They
does
do.
make suggestions for ingress and egress, because they have to. Rhonda, you're on the street committee, so you might know
Yes,
more about that.
when a proposed development comes through, I think of any type that requires some kind of action by the planning commission, and then the council looks at the zoning issue, then the police and fire have a piece of that. We see what they recommend, if they recommend or do not recommend. And so, yes, they are a part of the whole planning process. So Jeremy's shot, the police and fire are consulted and asked to give their, thumbs up or down. But I think one of the things you said was with the planning commission, hire more police. Well, they don't do that at all. But, with the mayor, I don't know. I think we need to be really careful in the way in which we package this. There can be some thought from some people that would say, if you have development, and if you have people in it, you have less of a problem of breaking and entering. You don't have the homeless camping on the property, which one of these situations was a homeless person who took a car, was a report I heard, a homeless person. And you don't have people living on this undeveloped property in town. So I've heard that argument that it would be safer if it was developed, because, now I don't buy that argument, but I'm just saying for us, for those who are writing letters to the council members, asking the council to vote no on the zoning, which is what we're doing, right? We're writing letters and emails saying we are asking you to vote no on zoning. Then I think we have to be very careful that this is not just, in my backyard, this happened on this undeveloped piece of property. Because the other 6 people on the council will say, well, it doesn't happen in my backyard because that's a nice development there. We all look out for each other and the police are there regularly. They're not in your area regularly because nobody lives there in that area. So we have to be careful, I think, about making sure that we're not saying, I don't want this in my backyard, and we had a break-in the other day. Well, the car stolen was a homeless person. And there are people who are very upset about homeless people living in our city limits on undeveloped property. And some of those very same people would say, develop it, they won't be on there. So, I mean, I know you're laughing at me, but I've been hearing these arguments for a long time. And so, we need to be really careful when we talk about safety is a huge issue, and more police is a huge issue. And last 2 weeks ago at the city council meeting, I said, or 4 weeks ago, maybe there was a development that seemed to me a little far from a fire station. It wasn't our ward, it was one, but it used to be our ward. It was out 62 towards Farmington. And I said, the police chief had checked, that he was not opposed, I think, or however the word is, approved or whatever. And I'm like, that's a long way from, well, then the Rupel Road extension is going to make that better when that's built. So the fire will be closer then, and they're still within their, so the chief had looked at it. The development was going to be within their numbers, what they expect is a safe distance to be. But I kind of raised it because it seemed a little far for me. If I were living out there in a development of a whole bunch of houses, that far from the fire department, I'd be saying, wait a minute, we need a fire station out here, which I think they will pretty soon. And then the rest of the taxpayers of Fayetteville, who didn't really get to vote on that development, will have to pay for another fire station. So, yes, what you said is very important. It affects the entire city when we make a development. And it's not that we don't want it in our backyard, it's that we want all these things to be considered for the entire city. We have to keep saying that. This entire city has to think about, what does it cost to put fire and police station in? If we bring more people in and give them more places to live in our city, what are the repercussions of that for the entire city? And that's what I just keep saying, because we cannot be looking like we just don't want this in our yard. We don't want this on our street. We don't want more cars on our street. Because other people are counseling say, hey, come see my street. See how many cars are flying past on it, I mean, almost every street committee meeting that I've been on, we've had a group of people either have written to us or shown up and said, our kids are going to get killed on it. You cannot believe how fast they're going on my street. And these are people not in my ward.
Yeah.
And so, to your point, it's a very good point, and I like it that you said it, and it should be included in our letters. We have to remember that other people are saying that people are driving fast on their streets too, and it might not be enough to cause them to vote no. We have to be really thorough in this on why the council members would not want this in our.
They only put in so many speed bumps.
And we don't have any budget for speed bumps, and they're very expensive. And the fire department in general is not for it.
Yeah.
And neither are the ambulance services. Yeah. So, again, you know, I think our drainage, infrastructure, safety, more police, the width of our streets and the deep ditches on both sides that make it an engineering nightmare to build a sidewalk. And we're finally getting one on Hostel. I've been working on that for years, and before me, and then Alan's been working on it with me, but before us, there were other people who did. And I can't believe nobody got killed before we finally are getting those out. It's a very dangerous corner.
Is that all they're doing, is the sidewalk, as it looks like they're clearing out?
Well, I think that the owner of the property is doing some clearing at the same time, taking advantage of it, of the opportunity. But the city did go back in a little further than you might expect because of that huge deep ditch. And so they were either going to be on the street with the sidewalk, which we did that up on Cleveland because that was the way to do it, because we didn't want to take away people's established yard. And so we put the sidewalk right on the street. And I walk on it every morning that the weather's pretty, and it doesn't bother me a bit. It does bother some people. They don't want to walk. They want green space between the street and the sidewalk. I think you like green space. I think you said that. I mean, I like to see it, but I don't like to take away people's yards to come in with people. My yard has a huge chunk. I lost a huge chunk of my yard when the sidewalk came in. And I sit on my sidewalk and hand somebody, you know, a glass of wine when they walk by. They're that close. And I'm not bothered by that. I'm glad I have something.
I don't mind it when they hand it to me.
But I like it that on the sidewalk, it's worth it to me to give up my yard. But it's harder to mow it for us and to weed eat it. I mean, we now have two sides of the sidewalk instead of one to edge. And, I mean, the owner is somewhat harmed by that. So the city took advantage of this opportunity to say, while there are no houses there, we're going to go back a little further, take a little more right-of-way, put the sidewalk off the street, make it safer, and then that way, when the people buy those lots that Mr. Archer has for sale, that the council approved a split on, I did not vote for.
2012.
Long time ago, yeah. That I was on the losing side of that, but still the city is saying, okay, we're going to put those sidewalks in, y'all been begging for, but we're going to do it before the development goes in so that we don't go in and take away people's established rights. I think it's a great idea. I think it is too bad that there are people saying that that's not what's happening. There are people, there are some citizens who believe that there's some, deal being worked out with the property owner so that we can widen the road and now get the development in or whatever. That is absolutely not a fact. The fact is, we finally got the sidewalk.
And the owner, I think, donated an extra 10 to 15 feet of property.
And it's going to be beautiful, and it is a safety issue and a great sidewalk that we've been trying to get in for years, and it just so happens that it looks like
And we
it's
put it at the same time.
sidewalk.
Go all the way up to cross and keep going.
All the way.
So we've already got the place
Well, done,
across.
yeah.
We got that in, because that was easy.
Yeah.
So we kind of started there, and then we got the hops in. That was a little harder, but that took, we have a lot of citizens on hops that, like, how far are you coming into my yard? So we put that on hops. It took a while. It did, and I think the city did a nice job, a very nice job. Some people who wanted that sidewalk in the yard with some green space, and some people who wanted it, don't take away any more of my yard because it's a small yard. So sidewalks are an interesting.
It's a give and take.
And I wanted it all the way up Hostel. I mean, I live on Hostel, and
Yeah.
there's a little piece in front of my house that's safe. And when I walk to the university, from my house to where I cut through Mr. John Latour's place, and we cut through there. And I walk it all the time, Deb. You see me, and you don't run over me. And I'm glad you don't run over me. I can't believe nobody's been killed there.
Yeah.
But
Seriously.
there
Such a
are
blind
lots
curve.
of people on the street who do not want sidewalks. And so far, the city, I think the day will come, but so far.
Is where the sidewalk comes up Sane, or going to come up Sane, and then Hostel, and then there's already the piece on crossover
Cross.
Across, yeah. Is there gonna be a sidewalk going down Maple?
Go down Markham.
Markham?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, Markham.
Yeah. And it'll hook up there and go to Hot so that,
And Palmer, too, I think is on the.
That'd be
for
nice.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think our
A couple years.
goal kind of every year when we plan sidewalks, you know, we start with schools. Who's walking to a school, you know, who, and then, and who's driving to schools that would help us to get people off the street a little bit. So, yeah, you're not supposed to put a scooter or bicycle on the sidewalk, but I ride a bicycle too, and I'll be on that sidewalk on my bicycle just to get, you know, and it'll be wide enough and nice enough to be safe. We can share.
Yeah.
So that's why we're working that way, is that we have so much traffic going to that Fayetteville High School. Everybody pretty much from the west, I mean, you should see that up Sang, you see it up Sang and over to Cross and back down
And then
Markham.
winding on around.
It looks like a highway.
Yeah.
It's bumper to bumper for
7:30
30
in the morning.
minutes.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah,
What's the sidewalk they're putting, it's gonna be pretty wide.
I think it is.
I think it's later.
Yeah, I don't know what they've done. I think they're doing it now. I think it's gonna be beautiful, and I'm sorry that some people have, you know, kind of a bad feeling about it. I think it's one of the best things we've done in a long time. But it is not in any way tied to or in support of or in conjunction with the surprise that we kind of got when Paul Barron the family came back 2 years later and said, now we want to develop this. We've always known they wanted to develop it. We've always known that. We've known that before I was on the council, and they should get to. It's their property, and they should get to do something with it. It just needs to be fit well with the long-term city goals and plans. And it is a town-down situation, in that makes it a little separate from the rest of Fayetteville. So we do have a little different situation. But I think that Alan and I will carry a lot of, when we join together on an issue, and we almost always do, the mayor then puts a lot of, you've told us that, put a lot of value in what the two boards who have been meeting with those people want. So if he's called on to break a tie, and the two members of the council voted together, that adds to his decision heavily. And so I think we need 3 or 4 more people on the council to join us. 4 would be nice, 6 would be great, but
I have
if we
no
got 4,
idea how the rest of them feel.
we can't talk to them, you know, we can't call them up and say, here's what I want you to do. So, but you can.
Y'all can talk to them as much as you want.
Well, you know, one positive thing about that I like is that you're putting the sidewalk across in front of vacant lots that are unimproved right now. Because it seems like a lot of other places, the people doing the building, when they build a place, they put a sidewalk in that spot.
Yeah.
And then pretty soon, that's where we come up all these working sidewalks. So if you're gonna do it ahead of time, that's a big plus.
It's just more expensive for the city.
Oh, yeah, sure.
In some of these situations, like the one on Sang and Halsell, it's just 100% safety issues, because there's hundreds of people walking to ball games and school, and they just literally have to jump in the ditch. I mean, I myself have jumped in that ditch many times, and I don't enjoy it.
It's a very ugly ditch.
Yeah, it is. It's not when you want it to.
Yeah.
You brought up a good point, though, of when it comes to our public safety officers, whether they be fire or police. Something you might consider talking to other aldermen about is density in fire protection. And that's one thing that I don't think has been talked about enough in this particular development, is that when we have higher density that goes into an area, it requires a higher level of fire protection and a different type of fire protection. What's the fire department's ability to actually get the ladder trucks in where they need to be? That was something, I kind of called the fire chief out on it at the last meeting. I asked him to come up and talk because I had some questions about that development. It was a PZD, I believe, and they were talking about, or no, it was Block Street, they were talking about the width of the street, whether or not to change it. And my question was, can they really get through there? That was my main question.
Can they?
Could.
And they
He said
can't.
they can't.
Absolutely, they wouldn't have. But to your point, I think we have to think about, already we're hearing a little bit about the university enrollment putting pressure on the one fire station on Garland that is closest to the university. And so there is even talk about asking the university, and I think that there's some positive conversation going on there that the university might somehow cooperate with the city to replace that fire station. It needs to be replaced. It's old and it's not big enough, and as the population of Kansas increases, then there's the chances of even, hazardous material spills with the labs being built and all that. So I think we do have a nice fire station out on Weddington. That's a beautiful one, but does the one on campus and the one on Weddington take care of before it's possible? So it's a really good point, and we need to get some of that.
Today, how fast can they get there? I've seen Weddington back up all the way to Spain, heading out west, and I thought,
Yeah.
I don't live out there.
Yeah.
Take
There's
forever to
really
get
no-
And Maple, and Maple backed up from College to Razorback certain times a day.
It's just as bad the other side, it's clear up to Salem.
Yeah.
Oh.
I know that I had a house fire in August, and there were 5 engines at my house within 45 seconds, I would say.
Wow.
Of course, they came down the hill,
Yeah.
at Cleveland. They came down Cleveland, and they came from across the bridge, and
Amazing.
they were there. It didn't take 45 seconds to get there, but when you start adding that density, what's happening right now is that, our fire department and our police department, they shift. When they all go to cover this one emergency,
And then what happens if there's a concurrent emergency?
and they have to shift, and they have to combine forces, and Springdale helps some, and we help them some, and so we just have to consider all those things. Like you said, it's a great point that you made. I think we have to look at it.
When we've walked on property that, this is certainly not the only PZD I've voted on the council. They've come up before, and we walked over one in Ward 3, and, the price was there, and pictures were taken, and a lot of that conversation was access to the property and safety issues. So with fire more than anything, but also with ambulance. And we need to talk about that a lot, I think, with the width of our streets and the depth of our ditches and the number of people that are walking and riding. So those things in Ward 3 were still the same, narrow, hard to get to. But if you add to our situation, people walking, and Leverett Elementary School, and that kind of, we need to, that's where your point, it's a city issue, and the whole city ought to care about the pressures that we put on the police and fire.
Hey, on this ditch issue, the Aura Drive from halfway down from Eva, is there any way to get those ditches?
Or they swell up in a heavy rain, don't
Yeah,
they?
and I know that there was some money for, improvement on Aura, but was that little section of the drain that comes off, kind of in the middle of that lower block, or is there more improvements planned for, you know what I'm talking about? There's kind of like one little area that they concreted and made sort of a drainage thing in between a couple of houses up from saying, but, that ditch issue is the same thing there. I mean, it's not nearly as trafficked as that 90-degree curve up there, but.
But do you remember when we had that flood a couple of years ago? It was a bad day, one day for that water on, where I went down there and helped a constituent with her house, because it was running, it was coming in her front door. It was so bad, but it was just a rare, it's kind of a rare thing, but still.
Not that rare.
But, I mean, for it to come in the front door,
to that
but for
degree.
it to be a problem,
Yeah.
I will see if I can get some,
Yeah.
because I don't know the answer to you.
I can talk about it at the Water and Sewer Committee in 2 weeks.
And I can talk about it.
But I mean, I was thinking about the sidewalk issue, because it comes down right in front of our place and then is abruptly gone when it narrows.
And that's on the east side of Aura, not the west side,
It's the towards town,
Right.
it's the, yeah.
the eastern side.
You mean east of Sang, not
East.
west of Sang? East, the upper, no, I was thinking west of Sang. You were
No, I'm
thinking-
talking about upper, but the bottom half of the upper.
Okay.
Yeah, east side is fine.
Well, we're,
But the Marinoni issue is what got me here as well. I'm just trying to figure out how all those people would fit in there.
You know, I've had just so many emails on it, and I really don't know what to say yet to anyone who asks, because it hasn't gone to the
Yeah.
planning commission yet. I know it's been to subdivision, and they forwarded it to the planning commission, but until planning really talks about it intensely, it's kind of hard to know what
When does that
issues
happen?
we're going to
When
be.
is the planning commission?
I haven't been told when it's going
Okay.
on their agenda. And
Is that-
I've asked for the update.
They've got public hearing signs posted up there. When is, who's that with?
planning commission.
Planning?
And that's probably for the subdivision committee meeting, which was this
Yeah,
last
they
week.
tabled it at subdivision committee, so I think that's why we're not certain on that.
Well, they-
It's going to be on the,
They had another one, and they forwarded it on to the council, or to the planning
So
commission.
that's probably,
It might be tonight, or no, surely not. It's probably the next 2 weeks from today, probably.
Next week.
is it, and it's on Memorial Day holiday, so they'll be on
On third Tuesday.
same time we meet. We have
It'll be at 5:30, but it will not be till 11.
Well,
Because city council agenda is going live at that night. Agenda session is at the same night.
oh, we'll be live, but it'll be recorded. Okay. Thank you.
It'll be in room 219, but just will not be
219 next Tuesday night, planning commission. Same time as agenda, well, we have agenda at 4:30.
27th at 5:30? 4:30.
5:30.
5:30.
And we have agenda at 4:30, so you all just aren't going to break away from agenda to go to planning?
No, we never normally do that because we don't know how long the agenda's going to last.
It's a very short agenda for city council, so I would think that it wouldn't last more than an hour and a half, maybe.
Probably, yeah. Some of
At
us
the
might get up
most.
and go to the planning.
I'll probably leave the agenda session to go to the planning commission.
Yeah. But, yeah, I think that's an important one, but the planning commission is not they're not making law, they're making recommendations to the council. They do a great job, and I don't want anything to sound like I'm being negative about them, but I think that's the kind of, everybody getting all, we need to be there, they need to hear us, they need to send it forward with a negative recommendation based on what the neighborhood wants, I think. But they're also applying, their job is to take the city's laws, which the council approved, and that's an important thing to remember. The only thing the planning commission is supposed to do is to look at the city's regs and laws and legislation and say, does this fit that? Does this match? And so if it matches, then the owner has a right then to say, okay, council, this is what, it matches, well, this is what I want to do. And I totally believe in that right and process, and I think it's a wonderful government we've got. And then when they get to the council, then the council has the discretion to say, yeah, it does, but we don't think it's right for this. It does meet some or most or all, but we're not going to vote to support that at this time, based on access, deep ditches, safety, fire, police,
People just don't want it sometimes.
But we can't vote, and we're supposed to be taking a longer view than the current property owners. And I hate to say that out loud, but that's what we're elected to do, is to take a long view, a very bigger view than what, some of these issues that have come up have been 15 people have emailed me, and that's all I've heard from. Well, there are 20,000 people almost in Ward 4. So it's a very, I told you I'm going to vote. I'm not backing down on that. Don't hear me wrong here, but I'm just saying you have to trust that the process of here are the laws and the rest here, and here's what I want to do. And if I can match, then why would you say no? That's why I like the PZB, because the PZB does get that sort of subjective. You get to think about it in a different way and say, well, it doesn't match because you want a rezoning, and a rezoning is a major request. People bought their property with some comfort in the fact that that was zoned the way it is. So if I buy next to a commercial property, I have some comfort in knowing that with my eyes wide open, I'm going to have a commercial development there someday.
Right.
But if it's zoned residential and it changes to commercial, then that's, that's a different to me. So that's what I think the council is supposed to be doing. We change the zoning, which is what is being asked for. Then, by gosh, we better have a really good, sound reason to do it, in my opinion, because it's a very serious matter to change the neighborhood's expectations of what is going to be there.
No, they just got done, I shouldn't say just got done. I mean, Weddington now, $4 lanes over, no, that's just a good mess. If it, and then I can understand having more than one access, just like Weddington. What are they gonna do, lock up traffic on Weddington and left turn? I mean,
So that's all be improved and changed and better, but, yeah.
I mean, that'll be down the road.
Notice added traffic lights.
Yeah.
I know.
It's interesting when we talk about PZDs, because then when PZDs are proposed, the city can force developers, not force, that's a bad word to use, but require developers to do certain improvements. I personally, especially after the change that we just made a couple months ago, where the city council makes the zoning decision, and then the planning commission has more leeway now to make decisions for that PZD. I don't really like the PZD process. In fact, I'd like to see it completely go away. And if a developer wants a particular type of zoning, I think that they should get that type of zoning passed, and then that be something that our city can use going down in the future as a tool in the planning belt, because it's a good form of zoning. I tend to think of PZDs as spot zoning, and zoning, and I remember Kit Williams saying this to us when we had our alderman orientation a couple years ago. He said, one of the first things you should look at when looking at rezoning request is, does it match surrounding zoning? Is it compatible? That's your first consideration. So I think PZDs, in my mind, I respect your opinion 100%. Ron is wonderful when it comes to
We won't
so-
go alike on this
On
one.
this one, we won't go alike. I think when it comes to PZDs, I think that they are the, well, just definition of incompatible with surrounding zoning. And that's what one thing the Arkansas Constitution actually talks about, is making sure rezoning requests are compatible. So I don't like PZDs, and especially don't like them now that the council has less control over them, because used to, we got to make not just the planning decision, but we got to make design decisions at the same time. So I'm a little bit more leery of the process than I used to be, because I don't know, I just feel like more things can slip by us. I don't know.
Well, if an apartment complex can be built by right at 4 person per people per unit, then you get what you got on Western Maple. You got 4 person per unit, huge block building. There's some people who live in that, around the Wilson Park area, who don't think that's compatible, but it was simply done by zoning right, and nobody had any control. That's the sort of thing that makes me like PZDs, because if we could balance 3, 4, and 5 bedrooms with a number 4 in the middle, which is what I would support if this thing was that, if the number 4 was the average, and the same number of people lived in there, but you had not a big block, or I believe it's student house complex apartment, which is what I don't want down there. But if she can do it, if the family can do that by right, then they just do it by right and go wherever they build just a big block. So that is why the PZD can be good. That says I really don't want to do that because I think it's ugly and not compatible. I think I can make it look more like little houses and cottages and pretty. And if the same number of people in there, if I can mix it up, that makes some sense. And you get to look at the plan ahead of time. They have to stick to it. The neighborhood is involved in the design process. To me, that's a way, it is a little bit of an exception to zoning, but it's a way of making a zoning, instead of saying, you can do that, making them do something that's prettier and better. But I respect your opinion on that too, and I think it's a little scary to think what we might get in our backyard there. But if the neighborhood doesn't want this, I'm not going to support it. But I think it will be developed someday, and it's going to bring people and traffic to our part of town, and it's just a fact, it's gonna be, and it may be worse than, I hope not, we'll see, but.
Yeah, it's funny, I was talking to someone about it yesterday, actually, and there's been a lot of talk about how great that property would be used as a convention center or a museum or something like that. Of course, we don't.
Park.
But the bad thing is, we don't get to decide who invests money or who buys from it. So that, it's not that we just get to make that decision, but things like that would be more of a destination and not something that creates a thoroughfare through neighborhoods on a daily basis. One thing that makes me particularly not like this type of development and consider it very incompatible with the design of the 5-bedroom duplexes that are connected. So they're really 10-unit housing developed units. So there's really 10, not 5. But they're considered a duplex, so it gets through. And I'm not sure how that works. I'm not sure how that really is considered a 5-unit entity in and of itself.
Apartment complexes are all connected.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, there's no break at all, so.
These are supposed to be cottages. I don't know, that's just one question I have to ask, but I'm going to wait until more plans come up, I
I
guess.
haven't seen even that, so.
It'd be a whale of a cottage if it's 5 bedrooms.
It would, wouldn't it? It'd be big.
But the thing that amazes me is that, for me, I don't live in the neighborhood, although I spend a lot of time there, because I used to work at the university, and I grew up staying in Cleveland. But there's no access. I mean, you've got the one-way frontage road coming up from the south, and you've got nothing on the east side where everybody lives, and you got Weddington. And you got all these, basically going to be kids with scooters and walking and bicycles and cars trying to get in and out of there, and it's just going to be a mess.
And the problem with access to the west side is the developers are not proposing to purchase the property that fronts I-49. You never know that, right? 540 to me. It's the Marinoni property that's closer to Sang. Not the Hackathon property, but the others. So access is an issue, most definitely.
So the Hackathorn property is further over, and this property doesn't even go over to the access road or the...
No, that's on Hackathorn.
Do you know where the church is? I believe it's a Missionary Baptist Church. It's right behind that.
Okay.
It's the proposed development. And then there's a tree line. And then there's probably another 40 or 50 acres, maybe.
I don't know
And
exactly.
I'm not sure exactly how many it is. And then Mr. Hackathorn's house, property in the temple, and then I walk that way. I take my dogs out through there. He's nice enough to let us walk through there.
But it might be worth just Alan, you wrote a great message to the University Heights neighborhood listserv, but everybody doesn't live in that. And I think I brought this tonight thinking it might be good to hear what our director of planning said. He says he can confirm that the Marinoni request isn't a done deal. The subdivision committee, after 2 separate meetings, forwarded it on the planning commission for consideration. They will also review and make recommendation on the rezoning as required by our ordinances. Ultimately, the council will make the final decision on the zoning, which will determine if this project can go forward at all. The recommendations on street improvements, and again, that's for the access point, and other items are coming from the evaluation by staff based on adopted ordinances and policies of the city council. Our planning staff has stated concerns with the developer's traffic study results, which indicates predominant traffic will go to Weddington. He also goes further to say that he doesn't think that the mayor has
You go to the university, you're going to go the other direction.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So they're taking that very seriously. So that just to tell you, that's the kind of conversations that Alan and I are having with planning. I haven't sat down with the mayor with this, and he mentioned that he's not in a position to talk about the mayor's formal position on rezoning. I was concerned that we got a message to the University Heights neighborhood, which is my neighborhood, that says it's a done deal. You know, someone wrote, hey, everybody, it's a done deal. Well, that was pretty scary.
And it was a realtor, he lives, yeah, and I replied, and I just said, well, it's not, I think what he meant was the real estate side of it might be worked out. But everyone interpreted it, it's gonna
Yeah, well,
happen.
it came out at 7:02
You know.
a.m. to an
Yeah.
email, on an email to me, not to the neighborhood watcher, but then it got
Yeah.
forwarded out. And, you know, by 7:15, my phone was blowing up.
Yeah,
I thought the council had to vote on it. Well, of course we have to vote on this, you know, I mean, yeah, I think you're right, I don't think he meant to, well, anyway, it doesn't matter, I'm not gonna interpret what he meant or anything.
Because I emailed everyone back and I said, it's not a done deal, I can promise you that.
Well, you know, you're talking about what they said in the report about Weddington. Well, they gotta get out to Weddington, then they're gonna turn on Sang and go to Cleveland there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Or going up around Clear Maple, but that's,
Yeah, then they,
I never
my
liked
personal
doing
drive,
that
they
drive.
go away to go the other way all day long.
Yeah.
Was everyone here, that's here tonight, that when the developers from the Marinoni property came?
I was there when he made his presentation.
Yeah.
Were you here, you were here, were y'all, okay, well, this is one thing that really bothered me. I specifically asked, do you foresee or have any plans of developing Lincolnwood, or do you foresee that that'll be a possible connection that will need to be made? And he told everyone in the room no. And that really is disheartening to me that he would say no to that.
Because you
And
gotta
then-
know
and
they're
then-
looking at it.
Exactly, and then the plan came out and it included Lincolnwood, and he didn't have it that night, and then he told us all that night that it didn't. So, I don't know, maybe even if it was a better development after that, I don't know how much I would consider it. But, you know, I just wanted to know if the people who were here that night remember that, because I did try to pin them down on that as much as I could, and that was their answer.
No, he said more than once that, you know, that somehow the other little street in the cottage development constituted the second access point
Mhm.
out to Weddington.
Right, without having to develop.
Yeah.
but in reality, I think, with that many students living there, there's gonna be a path worn between that back corner, that's the shortest way there is. Even if they just make a walkway, you know, that would.
Yep. Right across from the house.
It's already a great cut through for people. I'm glad that my co-workers at the university, it's not just students.
Yeah.
It's all grown-up people that I wave at every day.
That's a hard walk up that hill.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really interesting when you see me knock on people's doors after I've seen them go really fast down Sang, and see them turn into their homes and knock on their door and ask them to please slow down. I'm not scared to do it. I don't mind doing it.
I'm glad you do it, because there are times when I'll come out my driveway on Orange Circle, and I'll go to Sang, and I'll look both ways, and it'll be clear, and I'll turn, next thing I know, somebody is on my bumper. And I'm like, where did he come from? And they're honking their horn at me, and it just makes me slow down.
Yeah.
I'm becoming my father.
I get that. That's good.
I've had that same feeling.
You know, the hurrier you want to go, the
Slower I'm gonna get.
You can't push me with your car.
That's right.
Well, I think it's just really important for us to all remember that the staff will make a recommendation, and we have, you can tell from what we said, I have immense respect for our staff, and I think you've said that too.
Absolutely.
And their recommendation will be based on the adopted ordinances, that they have to, that's their job, right? That's their job to say this. And then there will be a recommendation by the planning commission, which will include, those reports will include police and fire. Again, police and fire saying, can we get there within the parameters of our expectations of this city and with the insurance codes and with the, and all of that. So, but that is no reason for everybody to panic. There's a whole council that's going to vote that will make the zoning decision. That is a fact. So what is important here is, it's good to go to the planning commission. It's great to get them to make a no recommendation. That would be helpful. Might get a unanimous vote from the council. But we have a council that regularly votes against a staff we respect, and regularly votes against, pitches out a vote that is not in line with what the planning commission, and we have immense respect for them. I'm on the nominating committee, everybody on there, I have part in putting on the planning commission. We nominate them and put them on there appointed by the mayor, they're not elected. So you just need to, we need to get the word out there that the council is who needs to be hearing from everybody in the town, including people west of 40 who say, we don't want any more mess in our, any more trouble in our intersection. Yeah, it's going to be improved someday, that's what some people are going to say. The state is going to improve that, it's going to be much nicer. Well, it's not right now.
Well,
And
yeah,
so we need to talk about
the
that
hard
from the
part.
whole community.
Anybody that lives west of 49, their major route into town is Weddington, North Street. Sometimes, I'll go up Garland or I go quickly up to College. That's just, the left turners and even another light there just slows down traffic.
It does, and you could bet that people who like Casey's or Casey's people don't want that development to go in. They want more, so we need the whole your community and it needs to be bigger than just my backyard. It has to be to get the council to vote. And so you need to tell people that this is coming up, and we need to make sure that 20,000 people in Ward 4, there's no way that council would vote on it, changing something I wouldn't vote on something in Ward 3 against what the 2 Ward 3 people said, and all the people in the city were, saying.
It happens every now and then, but not too often.
No, I think we just need to really keep pushing on it and not do these kind of alarmist, done deal, There's a process, and we have a very good mayor who believes in process, and he doesn't want to get sued. It's okay. We're gonna get through this, and I believe, I could be wrong, I'm saying it on
I do not think this is going to happen. But
we need
I've
to
been
keep
wrong
out.
before.
Yeah, I have to, don't
Many
give
times.
up. We don't slow down, yeah.
Keep the dialogue happening.
And we're not gonna break the law by calling the other council members and saying, let's talk about this.
Right.
It's tempting, but we're not gonna do it. So you all can do it, and you need to remember that. We can't, we haven't, we won't.
And email us if you have more questions. I won't have any more information for a while. Rhonda
It
will
has
either.
been kind of hard to get the right information out to everybody. I think that's part of why the alarming things come across, is because it is different groups. I was told by somebody that subcommittee of the planning commission just advises the commission, don't get too, they're not voting on it. Well, then we had some people say, oh my gosh, that's a huge, well, it's hard to get the right stories. But the fact is, Alan and I know that the council is the only body that can change the zoning. I mean, that's the one piece we know.
It makes me feel better to know that until we're sitting in those chairs and vote on it, nothing can change.
Good.
Good. Glad y'all came out. Thank you for
We'll get more people.
Yeah, it was a little, I didn't send my usual email out to the list because but we'll meet in June, and we'll also ask, I will, and I'm sure you will too, we'll ask if I have a vacation in July on a city council night. So if you hear somebody say, Ron is not even going to be there, do not panic. Alan will ask the council to hold it until I get back, and if he has to be gone for work or vacation, I will ask the council to hold it, and
I will not be gone for one week.
yeah, well, I mean, I can't get out something that I've got planned,
And
but you will help to make sure, I mean, the council has to vote on that, we can't tell them to, but just don't, when you hear something that sounds panicky, just email one of us so that we can try to help, because.
And on big issues like this, and when one of us asks the council to hold something, it's just out of respect, we generally hold.
You may have a food emergency and have to go to Amsterdam.
You never know.
You never know. But, yeah, I think one time somebody said, oh, that person isn't going to be there to vote on it. I'm like, well, when we get there, the rest of the council is going to say, let's hold this. So you won't get to see that in advance, so it won't be like on the agenda, somebody's going to ask to hold it. But that's how that works. So I want to give you a little bit of a fair warning on that, too. Just we'll both be there on the vote. So. Y'all are awesome. We have the best ward in the city, and it's because we all get together and talk about things, and and don't always disagree on everything or always agree on everything, but we sure have a great ward. I wouldn't live in any other ward in town.
I'm happy where I'm at.
Well, thank y'all.
Thank you.